Riley.
Present.
We got Ms. Letitia McCoy.
Present.
And of course, Brandon Price Crum, serving as the chairman of the board. I am present as well. The last thing I forgot at the last meeting as well, recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So all that, pledge, please stand and raise the flag. Sylvia, do you explain the division of the meetings? Okay, so tonight, what we're gonna do, is we're going to, can you hear me? Perfect. All right, so tonight what we're gonna do, we're changing things up a little bit, but we're falling in alignment with our bylaws. And that requires us to have two separate boards. You have the Development Authority Board and the Downtown Development Authority Board. And so the first meeting that we're gonna have, just so I'm clear, Sylvia, is gonna be the Downtown Development Authority meeting, correct? All right. All right, and so what I wanna do, did everyone get an opportunity to the minutes for tonight's?
I did.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna ask that we get a motion to approve the agenda for this evening for the Downtown Development Authority of Fairburn's meeting.
A motion that we approve the August 28, 2024 agenda for this meeting as is.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion required from anyone? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda for tonight, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any nays? All right, the ayes have it. The next agenda item is for approval of the minutes of the June 26th meeting. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from June 26th meeting.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion required? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the meeting from June 26th, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Aye. All right, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Chambers. I'm the treasurer for the Downtown Development Authority. There has been no change in the balance on the account, and we have a new contact at the bank. The previous contact is left, so we have a new contact that we're going to set up a meeting with. And the other item that we need to really talk about is transferring that checking account into an interest-bearing account. So I think that's something we need to maybe put on the agenda, maybe at the next meeting to approve, to take our just regular checking account and turn it into an interest-bearing account, so we'll be earning a little something on what we have deposited.
I thought we done that at one of the meetings.
We discussed it, but in that, Cody Bean was the previous bank representative, and he was looking into that for us. He has since left the bank. They have a new representative, so they are taking up what he was working on.
So this have to be on another agenda for another meeting to approve it?
It's something that, we discussed, but we never voted on, so we'll have to have it as, because it requires, it involves, the use of funds, we'll have to have it as an
So our next step, Sylvia and I are going to make a appointment with the new money manager at the bank, and then we'll be ready to move on that.
Now, I know with some of those interest-bearing accounts, and when you all meet with them, some of them you are able to deposit and withdraw pretty easily. Some of them, you got to go through some steps to withdraw. So I just want to make sure it's an account that we're able to withdraw from pretty easily.
So yeah, we'll get that. Cody went over it, Cody Beam went over it with us, and I think just like most of those interest-bearing accounts, there's a limited amount of withdrawals. I don't think the deposits are any problem, but there's a limited amount of withdrawals, but we'll probably have that at the next meeting for y'all.
Perfect.
Once we get some answers. Anything else you want us to ask? Anything else you want us to, think of anything else you?
I'm good.
Whatever the rate is, I
Yeah.
would like to know that.
Yeah, it's probably changed since the last time, so we'll get that as well.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, I have a presentation by Smart Fridge Autonomous Pilot Program.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
Hi, my name is Sabria Morris, and I am here representing Nourish and Bloom Markets today. The founder was unavailable, so I'm here in lieu of, but I'm going to do my best to represent them. You can go to the next slide. Oh, thank you. Oh, shucks. Okay, and how do I hit play? Okay, and this next slide is a quick introduction of the founders and the company.
I said, I think we could do something amazing here. I think we could provide this community with healthy food they can feel good about.
This is the future.
I'm Jalea Hemmings.
And I am Jamie Hemmings.
We are the co-founders of Nourish and Bloom Market and bistro, providing affordable food in a convenient way through the use of autonomous technology. I think we are the most technically advanced grocery store out there right now.
Our store, it has this warm feeling. Because of that, people are willing to try the technology. When we came to the town of Trilith, we saw that something was missing.
We were in this beautiful space that truly was a food desert.
We saw that they needed a grocery store.
With our children, we wanted them to eat healthy, we wanted them to have access to good food, but there was nothing in the area. Jabari, he sees the world truly full of possibility. He has autism. He is our inspiration for, I think, everything we've ever done. He doesn't see limits. It just gives us inspiration. But it wasn't about just us and our family. It was about what are we able now to do for the community.
We wanted to bring something that will change the future. He created a frictionless solution for our customers.
What frictionless means is that they don't have to fumble for their payment.
You just go inside, pick up an item, there's no waiting in line, walk right on out, and that's it, you're done.
It's been a blessing for us. There's nothing intimidating about shopping here. It's very easy. There's always someone to help you.
We have older people coming in, bragging about how they live in the Jetsons now. Friends will meet up here. It's really just become like the neighborhood spot.
We've seen a lot of pride around the community. The impact to our vendors has been tremendous. They love how seamless it is.
At Aloe Farms, we believe we're really at this intersection between community and agriculture. This has been really, really cool working with Nourish and Bloom and seeing that other side of technology coming together.
Our goal is to have 1,000 Nourish and Blooms across the nation in the next 10 years. Help out these communities that don't have access.
All of these things that we wanted to put into the store all work together to make people's lives better.
The store, it can help like everyone. Like everyone, basically.
Thank you for that. So, how do I go back to the presentation? Okay. While he's going back to the presentation, there's 1 in 8 people who live in food deserts. This affects them health-wise, all of us health-wise, right? It results in obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Nourish and Bloom Markets, they are the first Black-owned autonomous grocery store. So what that means is that they use AI, deep learning, their robotics solution, and they revolutionize how we grocery shop today. Their foundation combats food deserts. It promotes healthy food access for everyone, all communities. They make it accessible for everyone. The impact of lack of grocery and food deserts, I'm looking down because I can't see that screen, and I'm looking at my phone. There's $78 billion spent annually to address food deserts in the form of healthcare costs. Death from diabetes is doubled in areas where people live in food deserts. SNAP research, their program has shown and has proven to be the most effective tool so far for fighting food deserts, which is why we're very proud and happy to be able to support and accept EBT starting next month. The food costs in underserved areas is more expensive and less quality than in more affluent areas. We can change this. It takes us 3 months to eradicate a food desert. That's how long it takes us to deploy a solution that could eradicate a food desert. We want you to never wait in line again. Who wants to wait in line? And then with COVID, can I say that? With the C coming back, you know, it just allows another opportunity to be, to position ourselves, to be able to go in, shop, minimal interaction, come out, get what you need. This is how it works. You would download the Nourish and Bloom app, upload a credit card or debit card to that app, or you can go to the turnstile and we have tap to pay. So you can use Apple Pay or a credit card. You tap your phone or you tap the app, you walk in, and you pick up whatever you want. The technology, the cameras, the sensors, the weight sensors, they know what you've picked up, what you consumed while in the store, and then you walk out and you leave. If you use the app, you'll get a receipt through the app. If you tapped, you'll see the total on your credit card, through your credit card statement. And that's really how quickly it performs. And I'm just gonna show you one last video, it's quicker than the last one, of how the shopping experience is. This is at our store. This is at our Trilliff store in Fayetteville. We don't give baskets. This is just for the video. That you tap, you go in. This is just for the video as well, the items on the screen. That's it. That quick, that easy. And you saw the older couple on the video earlier, so it works for all ages. We've found that minimal people have problems with it, minimal shrinkage. It's been a solution that's worked. We have 3 ways that we can deploy. We can do it through smart fridges, we can do it through micro markets, we can do it through the custom home stores, which is what you saw at Trilliff. The satellite are the micro markets, that's what we're doing on Cascade. The smart fridges, we're putting 2 of those into Mercedes-Benz employee break room in 2 weeks. So those are 3 ways that we can deploy this technology to bring better quality food, make it more accessible to those in need. This is just the founders and their executive team. I won't spend time here on that, but that is the presentation. That is what we can offer as a solution to help with eradicating food deserts and the need for a grocery store in the area. The goal is to start off, at this point, get the opinion, the data from the community as they shop, as they tell us what they want, what they don't want, and pivot from there and grow with the community. I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Got any questions from anyone?
Yeah, you mentioned you got this already in Fayetteville?
Yes, sir, in the town of Trilith.
What's the address?
I can tell you, I don't know it off the top of my mind, but, it is 300
300?
300 Trilith Parkway, Suite 250, and that is in Fayetteville, 30214.
And you got how many locations already?
We have that one open. We have the Cascade location opening the end of September, early October at the latest. Then we have 2 coming on the Beltline in December. And the 2 fridges that we have going out to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in their break room, that is coming September 3rd. September 4th, we go live with them.
Now, I saw the customer had a hand basket. Those are, you got hand basket, rolling basket, just?
No, sir, that was just for the video. There's nothing. The customer goes in with whatever bag they go in. Some don't even go in with a bag. It's whatever they can hold. They go in or they take their own bags.
They'll take their own bags?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And so they were shopping with a large amount. They need bags to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm. But they would know that, like, we would set those expectations that we don't have grocery bags, like some grocery stores charge you for a grocery bag. We just prefer you bring your own.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that question, somebody, first-time shopper, go there.
Mm-hmm.
They see a bunch of items they need.
Yeah.
How would that accommodate them? Like if I went to the store in Fayetteville tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I never had an idea of it. Now I got an idea, and I get 5 or 6 items. What gonna help me get those items together? I'm not prepared.
Yes, sir. Well, Fayetteville's a little bit different because they have a bistro portion there, so there is an employee there. It's a 24/7 store, but from 11 to 7, there's an employee there. So there's someone there to give you a bag at that store. At Cascade, it is totally manless, so there would not be anyone there to give you a bag. So unfortunately, or, it's a lesson. They would come in whatever they could hold, and then from the next point on, they would know that they would need to bring a store. I can take that back to the owners to think about maybe, some type of way, but without having someone there to man it, it makes it,
I can see the benefit of that, but if you just open a business, when you come in there and you leave there with a negativity, you might not come back.
Yeah.
So to accommodate that customer, it need to be handled the first time. I can see after a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But to come there, there's something new in the area,
Mm-hmm.
you stop by and you see things you like,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a little,
Off-putting. That's great feedback, because what we could do is when we open, we can provide bags for a certain period of time so people can understand that the expectation is that they bring their own, but as we roll out, we'll provide bags for the first 30, 60 days or something like that.
that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Because now the ones that want to shop there,
They
no,
can.
They can.
Mhm. Good point. Thank you for that.
I have a comment and a question. Piggyback off what Homer was saying, I guess you can look at Audi's platform to maybe consider putting something to purchase the bag. Because, they do it with the shopping carts, let alone the bag. Even in my industry, they stopped doing bags for the hair store, Cosmoprof, and we have to purchase a bag to get our items, and you are right. I find myself carrying stuff out of the store, but they have someone there, so maybe, again, you can look at their platform to see how did they take care of that, because you do pay for their bags as well, and they've been successful with their grocery store, so I'm sure it's a way to handle that. The other thing is, what is, and I'm sure you probably answered this before, but what is the restock on items and inventory?
It's as needed. So we have a forecast report that we're able to run, and it tells us if it falls below a certain level, it's time to restock. And so we have a person who we have just hired. We call them our shop and drop, and they go out and they replenish the different stores. They will do the pickup of the items, and based off of what the report says needs to be replenished, they'll go replenish the different locations. And that could be daily. It depends on what the need.
So part two to that with inventory, that's doing a count. What about expiration?
Yes, it expires. We offer ready-made. Most of them expire within like 7 days. So we also track that and ensure that we get rid of those before or by expiration date.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I see an address on here, 320 Northwest Broad Street. Where is that?
Well, that's one of the locations that we were looking at, which would be on the GMC campus. So we were looking at that location, and there are 2 other locations. I've not memorized those locations yet, but 2 other potential locations.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes,
This
sir.
is Chris Wiley.
Yes, sir.
Can you all hear me?
We can, Chris. Yes, sir. What's your
Okay.
question?
Your Cascade location, and you said there's someone manning that. Do you know what the square footage of that location is?
There is no one manning that. That would be a manless store, and the size is, I think, 350 square feet.
Okay, and which location do you say that someone is manning it?
The Trilith location in Fayetteville.
And what's the square footage of that one?
That store is about 1,400 square feet, but again, it also has a bistro portion or aspect to it.
Now, the bistro portion, is it already made, or is it something you come up and you can order a different type of product?
You order, and they cook to order.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And how do you deal with theft?
Well, what we've seen is not very little theft. I think the last number was around 1 to 2%, and it's because you have to tap to go in, right? Where we have seen some theft is around, it pre-authorizes the card for like $10.
Correct.
So where we've seen some theft, it's hard to say theft, right? Because some people make it right. But if they don't have more than $10 on their card, but they purchase more than $10, that has been an issue. But that was very minimal, and I'm hesitating a little bit because I don't know the full solution that was put in. Again, I am the project manager. I'm standing in for the founder. But very minimal theft, but still something that we know we need to incorporate more measures as we move to different stores, different communities, different locations. So one of the things that we're looking at doing at the Cascade location, because it will be manless, right, is that we're not going to start off 24/7. The community there has asked us to provide them access after hours, and they would pay a certain amount per month to be able to get access after hours to feel safe if they wanted to go there. So we have equipped that store with a QR reader and a mag lock so that they can get access after hours. We're, again, not going to stay open 24/7, and we will start off with a security officer when we first roll out, as we learn how, as we see how it goes. Because it's a whole different neighborhood, and it's a whole different, it's again manless, 24 hours versus Trilith having someone in the majority of the time. So those are the mitigation measures we're taking at the moment. Did that?
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Chris.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
This is Todd Ireland. I speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Ireland.
Yes, once again, this is Todd Ireland. I really like the concept. I actually used it at an airport before, but my concern has always been, if there's a power outage, what is your contingency?
Well, it is a generator, and if the power went out and someone was in the store, it would release so that they can come out, so they wouldn't be locked in the store. But other than that, it is a generator that we would count on for backup power. And beyond that, we may have to close down beyond that, but the initial backup is the generator power.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So one last question. This is gonna be on the campus?
So we are currently conducting a community survey at the behest of our mayor and city council to get feedback from the community, their input regarding possible locations. We are also looking at alternative funding mechanisms, although this particular proposal involves a revenue share that would, in essence, return the monies that would be used to start the project. Our mayor and city council want us to seek alternative means for funding. The locations include the campus, the education campus, location in the downtown areas that have not been identified, but we are seeking input from the community as to proposed additional locations.
Okay, so the campus, I don't foresee a problem, but the downtown area you're looking at, how's the parking being squared out?
The downtown parking, from our last estimates from our Public Works Department, the total downtown parking is roughly 130 spaces. That includes the parking both at Armando's, at the 2 freight depots, the spaces out in front of the strip mall areas, and the additional parking spaces that were added along or adjacent to the CSX Mobile and the municipal court parking areas.
But are those public parking?
Yes, sir.
Armando is public parking?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know that. Okay. And security on the campus is cared for, security around the outside of the facility?
Yes, sir. So one of the early discussions that we've had with Nourish and Bloom is also with our buildings director and administration, so we're exploring those additional security measures. But again, we first will have to receive the input from the community and follow up with mayor and council regarding those reports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one more question. So go over again, if you're in the campus area, what's your store? Is it gonna be similar to Trilith or not similar?
It's going to be, I think we had 6 smart fridges. So it would have produce, all the essentials in there, plus some grab and goes, some drinks, water. What we have done is we would have the essentials at cost, maybe even a loss, to make sure that what the community truly needs, they get. And then, you know, the margins will come in with the grab and goes and the kombuchas and the, you know, the non-essentials.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I do have one more question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Per what you just said, what drinks do you carry?
That's totally up to the client. So we use UNFI as a distributor. So the drinks that are available in like Whole Foods, we also work with local vendors first before we work with anyone else. So we would put out a, what do you call it? You just said it, a poll to the community and ask what they want more so, or maybe even just working through Sylvia to do that. But it's definitely up for your input. But we do have fresh juices that we can offer. Some just want a Coke, Some just want a water. So we have a combination of whatever you all desire. And
Okay.
the beautiful thing about that, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, absolutely. You go ahead. You go ahead.
The beautiful thing about that is that we can start with what we believe they want or what they said they want, and based off of the data and what's moving, we can switch, right? And make sure that it's profitable. In the essentials, yeah. So the same thing for like the milk, the eggs, what are essentials? Produce, right? And even meat, you know, those essentials. Are you laughing at me? Those are the essentials that we're working really hard to keep at cost, so that the community and the people who really need it can get it. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Well, on behalf of the founders of Nourish and Bloom, thank you for your time.
I got 2 questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were last. Sorry, go ahead.
It seems like y'all are very intentional about where you all are starting off with your locations. Why Fairburn?
Because it's been requested by your constituents year after year after year after year. They've been asking for a grocery store, an alternative to Food Depot, and I am a commercial real estate advisor. I initially went to Nourish and Bloom because I was trying to bring a grocery store to Fairburn. I have done the research on Whole Foods, on Trader Joe's, on Aldi's, on all of them, and most of them won't come because it's not enough rooftops, the education levels aren't there. And this was a solution that we could deploy again within 3 to 4 months. And it's a pilot program for the first year. It was something that is doable, and it brings a good quality of food. We work with local farmers. So that's why Fairburn. And that question was asked before to the founder, and she said, why not Fairburn? And so I'll say to you, why not Fairburn? But that's how we got here.
Okay, perfect. Well, you answered my second question about local farmers, but I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the time.
Look.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda are the facade grants. And has everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the 2 before us? One is from Fannie Mae's Ultimate Fish Fry. One is from Life Within Candles.
Good evening, board. So this evening we have 2 facade grants. Just to overview, the facade grants are incentives that were created with the approval of our mayor and council to provide funding support for those who will improve the exterior of their downtown businesses. The process for a facade grant, number 1 is completion of the application process, but it also involves going through the planning and zoning for the necessary sign permitting applications in accordance to what our municipal requirements are from an ordinance perspective. The 2 applicants that have been deemed eligible and referred to us for approval are Lady Fannie Mae's. That is the Ultimate Fish restaurant located in our downtown. The application approval date was signed off on August 1st, and the amount of the grant is $1,126.92. The work has been completed, so in keeping with our reimbursable process, this grant has been deemed eligible.
All right, so for this particular item or grant application, I'm going to recuse myself from any voting based upon a business relationship with Ultimate Fish Fry, but I'm going to put this before the board for a motion.
I just get one question.
Yes, sir.
Work has been completed.
Yes, sir.
So they went in this with the intent to grant, be offered.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's good.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I'm gonna again put this before the board. Is anybody gonna make a motion?
I make it a
Chris Weiler would make a motion.
I second.
All right, all those in favor of granting the facade grant for the Ultimate Fish Fry, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And for the record, I'm going to recuse myself from any voting.
Just for the record, that's Chambers, Knight. That is Ms. Smith.
Yes.
That is Ms. McCoy, Mr. Riley, and Mr. Ireland.
That is correct.
Thank you.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, next.
The second item will be, the second applicant is Life Within Candles. Life Within Candles was approved for a project totaling $725. The amount of the grant would be $362.50.
Any discussion on this one? Questions for Sylvia? All right. Seeing none, can I get a motion? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I need to recluse myself from this particular tenant as I have a relationship with them.
Yes, sir.
May I offer a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
We have a 7-person board. It takes 4 votes, 4 affirmative votes, not just a majority of who's here, but 4 affirmative votes to pass a resolution. So if we have 2 recusals, I don't think we have the votes that it takes to pass the resolution. And I should also, there are 2 types of recusals. One involves the desire not to be put in a position where it looks like there's a conflict. And then there's a financial self-interest type of recusal, which is more complicated. It involves the safe harbor, and we can discuss that later on, but I wanted to draw that to your attention. We'll need to talk about it.
Okay.
But if we don't have 4 votes for or against, we can't pass a resolution.
Thank you. Let me clarify. My recusal was for Fannie Mae's Ultimate Fish Restaurant, not for Life Within Candles. All right. Any other questions?
And I will clarify, mine is for Life Within Candles, not Fannie Mae's Ultimate Fish Fry.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
This is Todd Ireland. I have a point of clarification.
Go ahead.
Per Robert Rules of Order, the chairman is not allowed to vote anyway.
Mr. Chairman, the Downtown Development Authority's law says you can vote. Law says you can.
Hey, Mr. Ireland, our attorney says the law says that I can vote. Do you have anything that would prevent me from voting that you might want to put forth, just for information purposes?
No, I thought we are abiding by Robert Rules of Order, so I stand corrected.
Robert, excuse me for just.
Oh, please.
You might get me into lecture mode. Don't do that. I'm not a parliamentarian, but Robert's Rules of Order is procedure.
Yeah.
Law is substance. The substance is the chair can vote.
Okay. Thank you. Any response, Mr.
Something
Ireland? Say that one more time. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, thanks for that. I learned something new every day.
Me too.
Yeah, me three. Okay. All right. Last thing, do I need to clarify, and does Chris need to clarify the reason for our recusals on each individual?
If we go through, if there's a financial self-dealing conflict under the Code of Ethics, then yes, we can't, the board can't accept the recusal without knowing what it is that the conflict is. If it's something like, you know, he's an old friend or something like that, and there's no money changing hands, and you just don't want to be put in a position of voting in favor of an old friend, that's different. We don't need to get into that, but it's hard, I couldn't say without knowing what it is. Okay. Should we bring that, should I get into that? All right, so, I actually had this situation with another DDA a few years ago. If a board member is a landlord of a tenant, then if the matter is to the financial advantage of the tenant, that would be to the financial advantage of the landlord, then it's a pecuniary, it's a financial conflict. The situation I had before, it was not, there was no benefit in it for the landlord, so it was considered not to be. So this is, you're getting kind of far out there on what is a conflict and what isn't. If you have a lawyer-client relationship, again, there's a, clients pay fees, God bless them. We need more of that. But there's that to consider, and also I, as a client, as a lawyer, wouldn't vote on something that a client of mine was in front of the board on. And if I can go a step further, and forgive me for doing all this, but in today's world, it's as much about perception as it is about reality. And people in public office and board members, although they're appointed, not elected, you're a public official. And as your counsel, I counsel you to be careful about things like that, and to go that extra step when you perhaps legally don't have to, because I think it's to your benefit and the board's benefit long term.
I guess with that said, under the circumstance that there's a landlord-tenant relationship, what would be the steps to talk about that type of conflict?
Well, there are 4 steps in a statutory safe harbor. You disclose the conflict, you disclose it in advance of the vote, you enter it into the minutes, you withdraw, you don't vote, and you withdraw from the meeting, and on top of that, before the transaction is closed, I guess there's 5 steps. There's an ad that goes in the paper that's saying, I am a board member and I'm going through this conflict resolution process because, and then you put some simple explanation in.
Okay.
If you do that, the board member is immunized from liability, and so is the board for going ahead with the transaction.
So do I need to put forth a vote to table that? Just that, I guess, the life within candles, what is your recommendation there?
If I were you, since you asked that way, what I would do would be to put the vice chair in charge of the meeting. I would exit the room. It's been disclosed. We need to put it in the minutes. If you would like to proceed with the vote, we can vote on it. And if there are 4 non-conflicted directors left who can vote in favor of it, it will pass. And then you can come back in and take over the meeting.
So we'll have to set aside, because Chris Wiley is, he won't be able to, unless he puts everything on pause, because he's out of the country.
Chris Wiley is out of the country. He's joined by Microsoft Teams.
All right, so on each, I'm losing track of all this. So give me the name of one of these matters. Is it the candle matter? Yeah. All right, so do we have 4 directors who don't have conflicts on the candle matter?
Yes.
All right, then.
Yes.
If our director who's participating remotely, you could leave the meeting by disconnecting and joining back in a few minutes. Would that work for you?
Mr.
Absolutely.
Okay, then that would be the thing to do.
Okay.
Okay, I'll hang up now.
Okay.
Don't forget to come back. We'll need you.
Thank you.
So disconnection is recorded?
Yes, the disconnection is recorded as well as the financial conflict.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I know that took a little while, but I
But
think
we understand.
we're understanding. I think I just want to make sure that we're moving in accordance with the law. And so with that said, I want to go ahead and ask for a motion for the Life Without Candles facade grant application approval.
I make a motion to approve Life Within Candles' facade grant application.
Can I get a
Second.
Petition.
All right. Are we going to do a roll call, or can I just?
Roll call would be great. How many? Yeah.
All right, let's do a roll call and let me know if you are in favor or not for the grant application approval. Ms. Mika Smith,
Approve.
Patricia Chambers,
Approve.
Todd Ireland,
Approve.
Homer Knight,
Approve.
Letitia McCoy,
Approve.
and Brandon Price Crum, I approve as well.
Can I tell y'all a quick story?
Sure.
I just remember this. I think this was in Pulaski County, where Hawkinsville is, and we were doing a workshop down there, and we got into this, and facade grants were the topic. And the chairman, it was the chairman again, got into this, and it turned out he was the one getting the facade grant. That was an easy one, and that's a true story.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, you're back. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. All right. And that's all for the facade grants, Ms. Abernathy? Okay. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, the Main Street Board Committee's presentation and reports, the Consumer Satisfaction Program Survey.
Yes, sir. The consumers survey, we asked that be added to the next month's agenda.
Okay. And next item on the agenda, do I need to come there or?
Wherever you're comfortable, you're the chair.
Well, here,
He doesn't have to come down, does he? Chair for the next item. He's presenting something.
This is just a presentation.
Yes, sir.
Not a vote.
right.
Is this, as long as it's not, if you want to go the statutory safe harbor route, you shouldn't participate in the discussion. I don't know that making the presentation is a discussion. We have a situation now where a director went through the safe harbor, so he's considered not a board member, and then he made the presentation because he's not on the board. It gives you the ability to do the transaction, so part of the transaction is making the presentation. So if we have a recusal, a statutory safe harbor in place, I think it's okay.
So you can stay right there.
Okay. Yeah,
We'll circle back around.
that's fine. All right. So move forward with this or table it?
You can move forward.
Move forward with it? All right. So here's an idea that I presented to Ms. Abernathy maybe about a month ago. It's an idea that I've saw implemented in cities across the nation, and it's called Lead Fairburn. But it's essentially an opportunity for community engagement and the community to connect with the local government, and also the opportunity for them to connect with local businesses. They will get insight, the cohort, and it's generally an annual program that lasts about 12 months or so. And there are a number of events that occur throughout that time span that will connect those individuals that are part of the program to local businesses and the government. So one of the things that I asked Ms. Abernathy, was there a program here in Fairburn that was like that? Because I did see one back when I was in Alabama called Lead Montgomery, and it was a very, very good program, and it really engaged community members to participate. And so it's an idea that I just wanted to open up for discussion amongst the board to see if this is something that you all feels, that could be a potential subcommittee based upon our plans that would be suitable for Fairburn at some point, and that the board could, put before the community as one of our subcommittees.
So give us an idea of what, just an example of something that
Yeah, sure.
Fairburn would do.
Sure. So the way that it worked in Montgomery was there was a cohort of about 25 people from a cross-section of the community. So you had dentists, doctors, teachers, lawyers, entrepreneurs, all a part of this cohort. And what they would do was meet monthly, and they would meet at a different business every month. And one of the things that they would do would have the owners of those businesses participate with presenting what, just information about their business, how their business helps that community. There would also be government officials that would come present to give just an insight about how the government is working, different departments within the government and how they help the community. And then what would happen was that cohort, towards the end of their tenure, would have to come up with a project. So it'd be about 4 or 5 different groups that would come up with a project that generally helped the community. One of the projects was sort of like a dinner with the fire department was one idea, and what it did was connect community members with the firefighters and then offered everybody food and fellowship. And so, just every group would basically have a project that they would take on before they graduated from that program. But it's also, that's one aspect of it. And then once you complete the program, now you're considered an alum, and you kind of help that next group to bring them along through the program as well. Any other? Go ahead.
It seems like to me it's made up of business, right? Business members?
Say that again.
Made up of business members?
Cross-section of you talking about the cohort?
Yeah.
It's a cross-section, so.
So it's just regular homeowners?
Just, yeah.
Is there any financial entity involved?
From what aspect?
Anywhere in it?
Well, the way that it operated in Montgomery was it was under the Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce helped fund that project.
So basically, that's what it's working under?
Right.
Okay, so that's a nonprofit that's there. So it's not political wings to it?
No.
Okay. How do you select the members? They're gonna have an application they fill out, they put in for it, and then how's it selected?
Yes, so there's generally a nomination process and an application process. For example, you could get us as a board to nominate some folks, and then they would apply to be a part of it. And that application is generally vetted by whatever subcommittee we have put together, and they will select who would be participating in that cohort for that year.
Oh, okay. So that's the purpose of the 2 committees?
Right.
Okay, got you.
All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns? And it's not for a vote. I just want to put that idea before the board to see if that's something that we might be able to bring forth as a subcommittee.
Well, I participated in one in California, same way, but it's more like networking the community with the businesses and the homeowners, what's going on.
Right.
Okay, but it was made up of a variety of peoples, different nationalities and so forth. Everybody had opportunity to participate. Even if you didn't get chosen that year, you were still on in the program to get chosen again. You never was deleted from that. So everyone had an opportunity as they changed.
Right. Right. Okay. Any other comments, questions, and concerns before we move on? Okay. All right. So the next item on my agenda is an executive session for real estate, but
I think we have resolved that, or do we need to have an executive session for that?
If I can, a little background on that, we were discussing earlier that we're having separate meetings and being more formal about it because we're doing significant transactions now and need to observe the formalities. This process, well, it needed to be done anyway, but it began after some due diligence into the activation of the Downtown Development Authority. We discussed this, but as a reminder, there's a requirement that the activating resolution that the city adopt have a map or a description of your jurisdiction. And we couldn't find the original map from 30 years, 40 years ago, from the 80s anyway. And so we went through the process of getting that fixed, and now we're having to fix the fix. But in the course of that, this purchase and sale agreement was approved by the citywide authority, by the Development Authority of Fairburn. I was up on the big screen that day. I remember the vote. So the PSA has been approved already. It doesn't need to be approved again. And we also have a commission agreement, and Sylvia recalls it having also been approved. And those were done in public. So the action that the board needs to be taken, the action that needs to be taken is by the board of the citywide authority, the Development Authority of Fairburn, and it has done that. So there's no need for the DDA to take action now. There's nothing to act on.
Okay.
So we can adjourn, motion to adjourn the downtown development. Motion to adjourn the downtown authority.
Okay. Point of,
So I believe, Dan, if you can guide us through that process, as we're adjourning, as this is a new process, we're adjourning that first meeting.
Correct.
So it's, we are going to the motion to adjourn, considering that the real estate is resolved, and that's just requiring signatures by the chair as the vote has already taken place.
That's correct, and you're exactly on time. It's 6:59.
Oh, perfect.
okay. All right, so based upon that, I would like to ask the board for a motion to adjourn the Downtown Development Authority of Fairburn meeting.
A motion to adjourn the Downtown Development Authority of Fairburn meeting.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it.
So the first three items are redundant.
Okay. All right, now I want to go ahead and call to order the Development Authority of Fairburn's meeting. And for this one, correct me if I'm wrong, I need to do another roll call.
Correct. I mean, it's silly, but yes.
All right, let's go ahead and do the roll call. Mika Smith,
Present.
Patricia Chambers,
Present.
Todd Arlen,
Present.
Chris Wiley,
Present.
Homer Knight,
Present.
Letitia McCoy,
Present.
and we have a quorum. I'm assuming we don't have to do the pledge again. I'm assuming we don't have to do the Pledge of Allegiance again.
You can if you want to.
All right. We've already approved the minutes of the June 26th meeting. We've already done a treasurer's report. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the presentation by Portman and Associates Proposed Mixed-Use Development. Is Mark?
Trying to catch you in advance on that. Can I just do this, or would you rather me?
Yeah, Mark, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey.
Good evening. Sorry about the confusion here. I brought some physical stuff to show, but I wasn't prepared to do it with a computer.
But yes, I'm Mark Brambrett. I'm with Portman. We are a mixed-use real estate developer based in Atlanta. I don't know if you've ever heard the name John Portman, but back in the late 1950s, he started a firm. And we've done a lot of big office projects, a lot of big hospitality projects. The firm built like 14 city blocks in downtown Atlanta back in the 60s. So historically, we've done a lot of big commercial projects in urban settings. Recently, we've been exploring opportunities to do mixed-use developments in more suburban settings, which is what brings us here today. Again, historically, Portman's been known for doing office and hotel projects. We started a residential multifamily platform about 4 years ago. My partner Harvey Wadsworth and I started that, so I'm one of the partners. We have 4 projects under construction or finishing. And we have one in Atlanta. It's a high-rise project in Midtown Atlanta. We have a project in Nashville and 2 in Charlotte. So we are under contract on a piece of property in Fairburn, which is on 74 and Meadow Glen, just south of 85. If you're familiar with the Chipotle and the Shane's Rib Shack, that intersection, that big vacant grassy piece of land behind that. So we are in the process of going through a rezoning. We're hoping to be in front of the Planning Commission on September 3rd. And we are basically proposing a mixed-use development with significant retail component along with some multifamily in the back of it. The property's been vacant for a very long time. The proposal that we're bringing forth is consistent with the Highway 74 zoning overlay, which is looking for sit-down restaurants as opposed to fast food and drive-throughs. And then we're also going to do a big green space behind the restaurants to sort of allow for outdoor seating and the connection to some green space, which we can show you in a second. I'll hold this up in a second once we get through this. But because of some of the significant infrastructure investment as well as some traffic improvements, we were hoping to speak to you tonight about an inducement resolution for a property tax abatement. So I can flip through some renderings here. Oh, good. Okay, sorry about that. That'd be helpful. Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, so is there a pointer? So you see the Chipotle and the Shane's Rib Shack. And this, so just to orient you, this is Highway 74 in Meadow Glen. The Tractor Supply Company is just on the north side of this. Yeah. So just focusing on the retail for a second, what we're proposing is more of a lifestyle center than drive-throughs or fast food restaurants. There's 2 retail buildings, and then you can see in the back of it is sort of a park, and that connects to the multifamily clubhouse. Okay, I guess we just so. Again, this is our retail development with the park behind it, with a main street and there's sort of a main street that goes through the community here, and we're envisioning that with split rail fences and sidewalks and somewhere that you can the neighborhood can kind of walk their dog. So again, picture outdoor seating, sort of sit-down restaurants. Your kids are running around in the back while you're waiting for a table, or there's maybe you could put the Braves game on a screen here. So a fireplace, a covered pavilion, maybe where we can do farmers markets on the weekend. And this is all open to the public. Sort of like Trilith-ish, but not quite at that scale, right? So I just have a couple more images. So we're envisioning differentiated storefronts, not necessarily just the the sort of typical, with some nooks and crannies for people to explore. Sorry, man. Awkward. This is the sort of paseo in between the 2 buildings that leads you back to the park. And again, just sort of focusing on something where the community could gather. We could do yoga, events, farmers markets, Easter egg hunts, Santa Claus in the winter, that kind of stuff. So there's about 12,000 square feet, thank you. Vanna White there, sorry again for the technology issues. So there's about 12,000 square feet of retail space in this plan. There's an additional 2 acres to the north that we're also under contract on. So all in, we're projecting about 160 employees in terms of jobs created. And then the multifamily residences would be, probably about 330 residences. So there's probably a staff of about 8 people that would be at that project, around with about 400 residents. So.
Question. Is it,
Yeah.
excuse me. You mentioned restaurant, and then you mentioned fast food. They all fast food?
No, I was trying to suggest that we're trying to do something different than fast food. What we've heard from the community as part of our community engagement is that there's a lot of fast food there already. And what people want, I've heard the term food desert, what people want is more of a full service, sit down restaurant atmosphere. And that's what we're trying to bring with this park and this open space. Kind of similar to like a Swanee Town Center or something you might see in Duluth.
Thumbs up for that.
Yes, sir.
The residents, what's the number there for the resident?
330.
And that's including the parking.
The 330 apartment residences with parking at about 1.5 per unit.
Is the parking separate from the business side?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have separate parking for the retail and then
So the-
separate parking for the residential. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm for it, bro.
What's the price range that you guys are looking at for the units? And you answered the question about parking for me.
Yeah, it's consistent with what you see across the street at the Oslo and the Dillon. Trying to keep it relatively attainably priced. I won't say the capital affordable, but relatively attainably priced.
Thank you.
So they're all apartments, no?
Yes.
Just all apartments.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
I'm sorry, one other question. Is it 1 to 3 bedroom, 2 to 3?
Currently just planning for 1s and 2s.
1s and 2s.
Sort of heard from the community that 3s were discouraged due to the schools. So it's probably, it's just more targeted for young professionals than families. Thinking about people that work.
I have a
at
question.
Charlotte. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, do you have a number? I know you said basically what the market is stating, but what's the price for a 2-1 or a 1-1?
Yeah,
ballpark.
Generally the 1 bedrooms are in the $1,750 range, and the 2 bedrooms are in the $2,000 to $2,100 range.
Got it.
So on average, it's about $1,850. I'm just quoting the rents in the market today. Of course, by the time we get this rezoned and permitted and built, and I'm not necessarily predicting what it would be 3 years from now, but.
So my question was presented before us, and then it goes to the city?
So this is preliminary presentation regarding the proposed mixed-use development. We are maybe 1 or 2 steps away from an inducement resolution only because they're going through the zoning phase. So this is to provide the development authority with a precursor before coming back with the ask. Dan, is that pretty much?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So you coming before as for a tax release. So we have that authority?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we would like to request the same sort of tax abatement program that I think you guys have done across the street and in the other properties like the Oslo. So actually, I was hoping for a little bit of feedback tonight because we're going through this rezoning process, and we need to know before we wrap up the rezoning whether we're going to be positioned to get an inducement agreement. So I actually thought there might be a little bit of a vote tonight, but maybe it's premature. But anyway, we just wanted to get wanted to present it to you in as much feedback as you want.
One of the cautions that we have is that anything that's going, the city does not necessarily contradict itself. So one of the things that we want to be careful of is going through the rezoning process and make sure that that's done first. My understanding is that you guys are coming up on a rezoning.
Yeah, I believe we're on the docket for September 3rd.
September
and
3rd.
The commission will be October 8th. So, and I guess just to be clear, we were not looking to close the bond tomorrow. We just wanted to know, generally speaking, if this was consistent with your mission, and it would all be contingent upon it all working out. But the way our contract works is once the rezoning's approved, we kind of need to get going, and I need to know. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, you know.
Right, and that's one of the things that we were basically looking at. It does expedite your processes in the sense that once it's approved, now we've already gone before the development authority, so you don't have that added step.
Okay.
But I'm going to defer to Dan in terms of best practices.
Well, there are best practices that prevail in every situation, and there are others that are best for a particular transaction. And we all know the Portman Company. It's a very reputable, very well-capitalized company. I know Mark, he's a good guy.
Thank you, sir.
And I've looked at the project information. It's up to the community and really the planning board and the mayor and council to decide whether this particular project works in that particular place. But I do think that Southside's waited a long time to have quality housing come. And here's not just anybody, but Portman come. So this authority has the ability to do a property tax abatement transaction if we desire to do so, bonds for title. And that is usually preceded by an inducement resolution. Doesn't have to be, but that's the normal practice. I thought the board had gotten to you, Mark, they were looking for a presentation tonight instead of the actual. I would have sent you an inducement resolution if we were.
Okay. No, yeah, the last we talked, I thought we were talking, but that's okay.
I don't know whether the board wishes to express whether they're assuming that if this is all moot if the rezoning isn't approved, but if the board has an opinion that they would like to express tonight that would be not binding about how well received this would be, you're free to do that and you're free to not do it. But you don't have anything before you to vote on tonight. This is an informational session. Sylvia said it's sometimes you're in a big hurry with a project, and sometimes the financial markets make you hurry even when you don't want to. It's a difficult time to finance multifamily still. But if the board is able to express your view if you want to, but you're not required to because this is an information session. It's a presentation by the developer. It's not an occasion for the vote.
I do have one quick question on the resident and part of it, and I don't know if this even totally makes sense, but trying to get an understanding of renting, because a lot of people move here from the north, because an apartment to me coming from Georgia and a condo to someone up north, two different townhomes, two different things, but does renting changes versus them being owning as like a condo, how does that affect like the quality of residents that's gonna stay there? Because renting is gonna be a turnover. Renting continuously goes up. So to keep that quality, and they're not gonna be labeled as condos, am I kind of, y'all understand what I'm asking? Condos, where there'll be ownership, how does that affect the quality staying where it is? Like I stay in Durham Lakes, we have our, well, HOAs have their HOAs to kind of help govern that.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I think the reason we're proposing apartments rather than condominiums is to try to capitalize on the job market, which could be a little bit transient, and also there's, from a cost perspective, you know, it's very expensive to purchase right now relative to interest rates and inventory and costs. If we were to sell these, they would be probably outside of the range of what a young professional could afford. So I think in terms of the quality, though, I mean, it's going to be a class, it's going to be condominium quality, but it's going to be maintained and owned by an institutional caliber equity fund, like a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs or somebody like that, who's going to have deep pockets. A lot of times, actually, what we see in the condominium space is that those are funded by homeowners, and a lot of times if there's a big deferred maintenance, they don't necessarily have the balance sheet to address it. And a lot of times I feel like the apartments, the Class A apartments probably are maintained over a 30-year period and a little bit better sometimes than a condo. So,
got it, thank you.
But it's a good question.
I need to go.
Volunteer something. If it turns out the board has particular concerns, requirements can be built into the abatement transaction. Sometimes as a memorandum of understanding. Some of the cities in DeKalb have gone to the lengths of stipulating what the countertops are made out of. I don't necessarily recommend that, but if there are particular things that you're concerned about, those concerns can be allayed in the transaction.
Yeah.
I'll throw in, I'm just a lawyer, I'm not an economist or anything, but y'all know a lot of people these days don't want to own houses.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I need to go back to that tax issue because I don't have it quite clear. The tax issue, that's the window for the project, the construction project.
I think the tax abatement, that program that we're proposing is your bonds for title, you know, where there's 50% tax abatement for year one and then 10% and it goes down over a 10
I got it. That's what I need to get some clarification on.
The normal Fulton County.
Yeah, right, okay. So, A+ for me, go for it.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, shows of support?
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. We would look forward to seeing you again once we perfect our, hopefully perfect our entitlements.
Thank
For your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good luck, Mark. All right. Next item on the agenda is the inducement resolution. And Dan is going to present for us?
Yes.
Okay.
I can do that if you like. Everybody should have a copy of this inducement resolution in your package. This is one of those that moves fast, and you don't see that sort of thing with a project of this size very often. Literally, thanks to Sylvia's good work, we were in touch with the developer. We had a conversation. I prepared a draft inducement resolution. They sent back some changes. I sent back what was acceptable, and here we are tonight. This is a data center, and I guess I'm assuming I really shouldn't assume anything these days. There's a project summary on page 6 that will tell you about the project. But these are these big buildings that have servers in them. They call them blades. And when you get on the internet or when you use Google or if you use these artificial intelligence devices, and I use them all the time, but they're essential these days. And with artificial intelligence, they're booming all over the place. And the South Side is getting quite a few of these. And I'm delighted that Fairburn has a chance to do this transaction because it looks like the Development Authority of Fulton County would have done it anyway. This is an opportunity for us to do it, and we offer advantages. There's some technical legal things about going through a city authority instead of a countywide authority that were bound to our benefit in this. But the project, I'm just going to kind of, let's look on page A1. Can y'all find A1? It's labeled Exhibit A. It's preceded by a resolution. That's what y'all are being asked to vote on and say yea or nay on tonight. But part of adopting the resolution is to approve this letter of intent and inducement agreement. And some things that I'll point out, if you look in the second full paragraph, you see that the bond amount is $1.21 billion. It's a little bit high. We found a little bit of the land is in Palmetto, so that won't be in this transaction, so it'll drop down a little bit in the bond resolution. But let me just explain. I see bond resolution and inducement resolution. I was delighted at the beginning of this year to give the board a presentation on bonds. And we were going to try to get my partner, Kevin Brown, here to do a presentation on open meetings, open records, and conflicts, and he couldn't make it. And boy, we could have used him tonight. He could have had a little PowerPoint presentation on that. But you've had at least the PowerPoint introduction to what we're doing. So the first step is the application. We have an application. Sylvia sent it. It's been completed. It's been returned. They have applied for this in a formal way. We're not just hauling off and doing something because we want to. It's been somebody's made application to us for this. And it's gone through the process of reviewing the data, preparing the document, negotiating the document, putting the document in front of the board. This is really step one. If the board sees fit to approve this inducement resolution, then the transaction will go forward and we will create the bond document. So the inducement resolution is this thick. If we go forward with this, the bond resolution will be this thick. So this is a preliminary document. It indicates our willingness to do the transaction. But if you look on page A9, there's section 23. It basically says we have an exit clause. We can change our mind if we want to. But this is important, and our multifamily developer a minute ago mentioned it, because when entities are talking with financing sources, they do projections, they do pro formas of what their income and expenses are. And it's in certain industries, and when you look at a finance $1 billion project, it's one, and for another multifamily in this financial market, it's another. It does help a lot to be able to show you're saving X amount of dollars in expenses that you can spend instead on debt service, and it makes it a more financeable project. And just because it's a data center and just because it's a lot of money doesn't mean that it's any different than that. This particular data center developer, T5, they caught my eye 10 years ago. You know, I'm kind of a, you know, I like science fiction and electronics and technology and all of that, so I watch out for that kind of stuff. And so T5 caught my name. These guys used to develop other stuff, other kinds of real estate, and they got into data centers early. And in the last 10 years, they have become a pretty important player in this market, not just here in Atlanta, but other places too. So it's a data center. We're familiar with what they are. It's the T5 company that's the developer. We're familiar with them. We're familiar where the site is. So that brings us to the document. So how much are they going to do and how are they going to do it? So it's $1.21 billion. There will really be only two bonds, one for each of two buildings, and you have the respective principal amounts of the bonds there. They have a pretty good idea of what each of the two buildings is going to cost, and that's really for their own land, building, and equipment. These data centers will attract tenants who will install their own servers there, and they will be subtenants, and we may or may not get a request for a property tax abatement transaction for the tenant's equipment, but there's none on the table yet. If we turn the page, we see, if you skip the legalese, look down at paragraph 2 on page A2, the part that's in bold.
What page?
A2, alpha 2, section 2. We on the same page? All right, so this says what the law says. It basically, we, the development authority, are going to issue these bonds, and these bonds will have our name on it. But they will be revenue bonds. We are not responsible for repaying the bonds. The city's not responsible. The county's not responsible. Nobody's responsible except for the developer. If you recall my presentation, the bonds aren't going to be funded with cash anyway. They're going to transfer to the authority to be titled in our name, the property. And that property has a value, and that value will be ascribed as a draw on the bond. That's how the bonds get funded. They get funded with property. And there's cases that say that that's perfectly fine. But if anybody ever asks, is the city going in debt $1.2 billion, you can say, no, they're not. They have no liability on this, and neither does the authority. The next page basically describes the structure of the transaction. It's the bonds for title structure. They transfer the project to us in exchange for a bond. We lease it back. We give them a purchase option. That creates a structure that justifies the property tax abatement. We will run it by the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors with a memorandum of agreement that will be signed by the authority, by the assessors, and by the company. Page A4 gets into the company has to pay everything. It's like being the father of the bride at a wedding. They pay all the bills. And that begins on page A4 and continues. But if you look at page A5, we say in great detail, because it's important, that the development authority is indemnified. If anybody makes a claim, if there's a lien, and, you know, not only will we require liability insurance, but we get an indemnification agreement from the company as part of the lease, and that includes environmental matters. So if we continue looking through, the environmental spills over to the next page. It's gotten to be that kind of world. If you look at the bottom of page A6, section 13, They pay all expenses that are incurred, and that includes the legal fees. If we look at the next page, on page A7, section 15 says that if we embark on this, there's no guarantee that we'll get to the end. So that's sometimes obvious, but sometimes it's good to point out what's obvious. If you look at the bottom of page A7, you begin to get into their planning. Section 18A says there's an outside date for the bonds to be issued, and that's, the first version of this said by December 31st of this year. They came back and asked for an extra 3 years through June 30 of 2027 to issue the bonds. And I didn't push back on that because they're going to do what they're going to do. They're looking for financing, and they're looking to have subtenants sign up on the deal, and they will proceed just as soon as they get that, and they won't proceed anytime sooner, and there's nothing I can do about it. I would have preferred 12/31/24, and I do think this will happen long before 6/30/27. But if anybody asks, well, why didn't these bonds close this year? That's why. It's because they're not ready. We have an outside date, if you look at page A8, for this inducement resolution, this inducement agreement, if the board determines to approve it tonight. The company has a deadline to sign and send it back to us, and that's September the 6th, which unbelievably is next week. We're into September of this year. And there's another very nice part of this in section 20. If you take a minute and look at that, we're going to have, if we don't already, we should have already separate bank accounts for the DDA and for the Development Authority of Fairburn, and separate financial statements. Because when these bonds are issued, well, not only because of these bonds, but that's what we should do anyway, but it will become very obvious when these bonds are issued, the difference in the bank accounts of the two authorities, because they're different authorities. The Development Authority of Fairburn will issue the bond, and it will receive, when the bonds are issued, a financing fee of 1/8 of 1% of the maximum principal amount of the bonds. 1/8 of 1% of this bond amount is over $1.4 million, which will go into this authority's bank account. You should never do a bond deal just to get a fee, but when you get a fee, it's a good thing. It gives us some money to work with. Beginning at the bottom of that page and carrying over to the next, actually I'm on page A9 now. There's a discussion of the memorandum of agreement with the assessors. You know, this has a process that's been hammered out over the years, and some of it in court in Fulton County. So there's precedent for the assessor signing this agreement. Yes, this is how the project will be taxed. And this will also be validated in court. You call from the discussion, and Georgia bonds are validated. You get a judge's order saying all of this is legal and proper and everything is hereby validated. 23 is our exit clause. And the only other thing of note, I've already called out the project summary to you, and this doesn't have a page number on it, but it's like the back of the second page from the end. There's a Schedule 27, which is the leasehold valuation schedule. So this is the buildup of taxability. It's what our developer Mark Brambett mentioned earlier. This is the standard deal in Fulton County. It's possible to do something different, but we're doing the standard deal. So in the first year, and that's the first year after the certificate of occupancy is issued for the buildings. So in Fulton County, there's no tax until the building gets CO'd, although there's a payment made in equal to the tax on the property before the bond deal. So nobody loses any money at the beginning. But when the project gets when a building gets a certificate of occupancy and you get into your first tax year, that year, the company pays half of the taxes that it normally would. And then the next year it pays 55% of the taxes that it normally would. And that goes on for 10 years and then it's over. So that's the document, and that is the deal. And it's totally up to the board of directors, but I can tell you from a legal point of view, the document is what it should be, and strictly from the standpoint of the legal formalities, I can recommend the document to you.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions?
I have a question.
Is that Chris? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, yes. Dan, if you were me, what are the top 3 questions you would be asking about this deal?
I've already answered them. Are we indemnified? Do we have any liability for the repayment of the bonds? And are the documents what they should be? Those 3 questions.
Okay.
But I'm happy to answer any others. I like talking about this stuff. If y'all have a question, let me have it.
So is there a clarification on where this is going to be located? Have we seen a site plan on where this is going to be?
If you look at, it's on the map that's attached. This is on Gullet Road. We were told it doesn't have a street number. So we've got the site plan and we've got the road, and that's all we've got for now. You got more? Oh, Sylvia has more. She's always got what you need. Thank you.
These
Digital
are
renderings,
copies,
but
yes.
is there a, like a?
Yeah, they haven't provided us, they've only provided us with the renderings, and I will provide digital copies for the board.
Let me volunteer something. This is, for some reason, that jogged my memory. I was trying to find a copy of what they originally sent us, and I don't have it on my iPad. But what I recall is, how many jobs are these?
Yes.
The construction period job's about 2,000.
That's right. So I can give a brief update, Dan, on that. So the benefits to the city of Fairburn are as follows. The temporary construction jobs generated by the project will be approximately 2,000 through the life of the development process, with a peak of 500 construction jobs on site. It's expected to have, once completed, each building will employ roughly 10 to 14 facility engineers. These would be the full-time security staff, 6 to 8, and 10 to 40 IT professionals. From an economic development standpoint, when we look at high-paying jobs, they do qualify for a job tax credit because these are higher-paying skilled jobs.
That's where I was going with that. You know, our developer said earlier that, I mean, and it's true, when you, grocery stores and restaurants and all, they look at, you know, what disposable income that people have to spend. And the better paying jobs in the community, the more folks like that you have, and the more jobs you have for the people that are there. And I was surprised how well paying these jobs are. I mean, these are pretty good jobs.
And the investment for the city, the first 2 buildings will represent an investment into the Fairburn economy of $671 million to include civil improvements. The building shall an extensive mechanical, electrical equipment placed in the building and owned by T5. The second building will represent another $536 million investment. The total T5 plan represents a $1.2 billion investment into the Fairburn local economy.
Yay.
What was that last number again?
$1.2 billion.
Question. And I'm talking about facts in Fairburn, job-wise. These are jobs available, but how many of those jobs are potential Fairburn residents?
So that's where we work with our workforce development. When we recruit a similar project, when we dealt with Resia and some of the others, we start talking with their human resources folks almost immediately. And we pair them with Georgia Workforce Development and Quick Start to make sure that there's training. That translates into a percentage of those jobs being Fairburn, if not residents, people who will ultimately live in Fairburn.
Right. Some of these jobs are very high-tech.
Yes.
So it would be important to advertise this in advance. With these homes being built, you get people coming and relocating. Because it's just say the job's available, you still got to have to be qualified in order for a company to put you to work. So they're high-tech. People's moving from all over the world to Fairburn. If these jobs are located, you're going to be finding professionals already in that field locating to this area that makes it Fairburn resident. Because, you know, Fairburn just now starting to get residents that's, I would say, qualified technical job moving into these areas. Second, this document, I'm sort of familiar with it, but it's well put together. I mean, it answers all the questions. Let's put a lot of time in this year, and I appreciate it, because we counting on you guys. I'm not studying this, but I can see that it asks all the bullet points that I need to know to make something that I can sign on.
Thank you. We're delighted with this, really. It's a big step forward.
Are we able to take public comment?
I'm going to defer to Dan. Would we have had to do that at the beginning, or how?
The board is not, development authorities are not required to offer a period for public comment, but you can. Is there one on the agenda?
Has someone registered?
Gentleman raised their hand.
Gentleman in the crowd.
Okay, fine.
I don't have a comment, I have a question, if I may, if the chairman and the board would allow me to ask Dan a question about indemnity. He mentioned environmental indemnity, and my understanding is that these big data centers require a lot of water. And, you know, with the way the weather is and the concern about the environment, I don't want to sound like Mr. Robert Kennedy, but, you know, to indemnify hazardous material and, you know, if the water is there every year, could you go into detail about what that may comprise? Comprise.
Those are good questions, and I have 2 or 3 answers for that. Regarding conditions that are already there, there will be a phase 1 environmental site assessment, require that, and if anything's indicated, there'll be a phase 2. Your question is more about environmental conditions that may result from operation. And as I say, I do follow these data centers, and water is an issue, but it's not the wastewater. And I'm not the world's leading expert, but I've not read anywhere any concern about pollutants coming out of a data center. And if there were a need for on-site wastewater treatment, the state or EPD would require that. The concern is often about, and I'm venturing from your question, but if you'll indulge me, sometimes people have concerns about data centers. And one of those concerns is sometimes the amount of water that they use. But the data centers are moving into a type of cooling that does not require the same amount of water. And there's different ways to do it. One way is to, and I read this in the Wall Street Journal, I haven't seen it, but it's literally submerging the servers. But there are ways to do it short of that, where the tremendous volumes of water the data centers typically are not required anymore. And if I recall correctly, this is one of those. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. So there's no, I'm not aware of any environmental concern associated with this data center. And that particular type of data center, I haven't run across that. I do see that with solar panels. That's not what we're talking about, but we're talking about energy and that sort of thing. Solar panels have rare metals in the panels, and the state actually passed a law that became effective July 1st of this year, House Bill 300, that sets out mandatory standards for decommissioning of solar power plants and requires a surety bond to make sure that the money's there to do it. If there were that level of concern about data centers, I think our General Assembly would have done that. Y'all may be aware that a bill was passed to suspend a sales tax exemption. The servers, the computer equipment that goes in these data centers gets obsolete in 2 to 3 to 5, no more than 5 years. It's completely refreshed within that period of time. And otherwise, without the exemption, there'd be sales tax on it. So there was a Senate panel, I think, that spent a good bit of time studying data centers. And what came out of that was the recommendation to pause the sales tax exemption, and it passed the General Assembly, and the governor vetoed it because he didn't think it was a good idea. There's a lot of communities that would like to have over $1 billion worth of investment in some good high-paying jobs there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just one other question. It's my understanding that this is not the only data center that is on the south side. We built
can neither confirm nor deny. But I can tell you the city of South Fulton has one. They've adopted their inducement resolution.
Yes, there's several, and they're quite demanding on the environment, as far as the drain of the new nuclear reactor.
I can go on for a long time, y'all. I agree with you there. What I've heard is that when the Plant Vogtle, when one of their reactors came online, it would have powered 300,000 houses or one data center. But, so they require a lot of power, and that's a concern, but that's not our concern tonight. The General Assembly and the Public Utilities Commission are in charge of that.
Go ahead, Mr. Knight.
So your concern, your questions gonna come up in the building process. All that data gotta be spelled out in there, because we here just for the bond. But all those details and the question that you asked is not up on this body here. This body here is for the bond. But those questions before construction of the project ever gets started, they gotta meet all the environmental laws, rules, and regulations. In this particular case, it would be spelled out in detail because of the project in itself and the liability side of it. But we're here for just the bond that's here.
I understand, and thank you for allowing me to speak. And I'm 72, and by the time we have a meeting, I'll forget my question.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any questions, comments for Dan or Sylvia? All right, I got a couple, Dan. Now, you mentioned full indemnification and kind of to bounce off of one of the questions. In terms of the environmental indemnification for the board, if there is an environmental impact, the board won't be liable. Is that correct, or am I reading that wrong?
Indemnification doesn't immunize you. It requires somebody to pay a claim, in addition to which we'll have all kinds of insurance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the follow-up question on that, I know you mentioned that they have until June 30th of 2027 for the bonds to be issued, but if they meet the lease requirement before that point, can the bond be issued before that point, or is that when they will issue?
My expectation is that I cannot believe September is next week. Maybe not this year, but I would imagine next year that they will be coming to see us, because as was said earlier, there's a lot of these data centers going on. It's a competitive business, and as soon as you get your money and as soon as you get your user signed up, you're going to close your bonds. There's no way I think it'll be 2027. So they'll be back, and we'll be ready to help them out.
Okay. And those funds for the help me out, the 1/8.
The 1/8.
Financing fee.
Yeah, the set fee for the bond, it's not called, what is the fee called, Dan? It's not.
It's a development authority financing fee, 1/8 of 1%. They proposed to basically cut it in half, and we said no.
Okay. So that will go into the Development Authority of Fairburn, not the Downtown Development Authority of
Correct.
Fairburn. Okay. And question for Sylvia. One of the things that you see with big data centers, big manufacturing plants, et cetera, is opportunities for other businesses to come in that offer some product that helps that larger facility. Do we foresee an opportunity for other businesses that will?
A clustering effect.
Yes.
So one of the things, the anchor businesses, this data center will bring in an anchor business. They will let us know, they have told us who they believe it will be, but there will be an anchor business, hence the IT professionals, engineers, et cetera. But to your point, when a large business, such as a data center, comes into an area, it does begin to create an ecosystem, a clustering effect where there are like businesses to service that business that will be drawn to that area. In keeping with our recent economic development strategic plan, that is one of the things that we're looking on. And, kudos to our planning department
any of those proposed projects, and our, esteemed Planning and Zoning Commission will not only look at the environmental impacts, but for this particular project, the reason that it's even before you is because it is the highest and best use for that particular area, meaning that the person coming into the area, the T5 company, has met certain, they are, when I say meet certain standards, the quality of the development has been looked at, and it is considered a highest and best use as proposed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Any follow-up questions, comments, concerns for Dan or Sylvia before we put this for the board for a vote? All right, seeing none, I would like to get a motion for the approval of the inducement resolution. Can I get a motion from anybody on the board?
I motion that we approve the inducement resolution as stand.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those that approve are in favor, of approving the inducement resolution for issuance as stated, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Seeing none.
Thank you, board members.
Approval passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, I have a executive session for.
We're good. We satisfied during the first meeting, so, Chair, unless you have other matters, it would be an adjournment.
Okay, all right. I would like to have a motion to adjourn this meeting unless there's any comments, questions, concerns from any of the other board members.
One comment? We adjourn.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.